Finally, a mass model from Toyota that also drives in with its much touted and globally acclaimed hybrid technology in a more accessible way. So far, the preserve of the Prius, the Camry, and the Velfire, the hybrid drive now goes mass with the Urban Cruiser Hyryder. Compact SUV buyers really want their new vehicle to look like an SUV, so the ample proportions on the Hyryder will really sit well with them. The car looks nice and modern, very contemporary. That's again something that they're going to really appreciate. Now, a lot of talk about how this is a common car with the Grand Vitara from Maruti Suzuki. So let's get that out of the way. Yes, certain body panels and especially the side profile will remind you of that car, but it's the face where I really like the typical Toyota design language that shows up. The slim DRLs and the headlight down below, and even the way the front grille has been finished is very much in line with SUV styling for Toyota models worldwide. The hybrid badging along the side is also something that you see on all Toyota models, and the two-tone roof, especially with a speedy blue color, I really do like it. It's only going to be on 4 of the 7 body colors on offer with the Hyryder. At the rear, you get the split LED tail lamps, which are slim and go really well with the overall design of the car. The stance is also good. The SUV is 4,365 millimeters long, and the short front and rear overhangs sit well with the overall proportions. The wheelbase is 2,600 millimeters, and that's less than cars like the Seltos, Creta, or even the Kushaq and Taygun. Inside the cabin, there's a lot more to talk about. I am really pleased that you have both a height and reach adjustment on the steering wheel. A lot of cars don't have it, and it's great that this does. What you're seeing right now here is a surround camera that's giving me an entire look of everything around me. Now, that's something that I recently saw on the new generation of the S-Cross that I just drove in the UK. And there's a whole lot more in this screen. A lot of this is shared with the Grand Vitara. So what you get is a lot of connectivity and a lot of connected car features. So let's get that out of the way. You've got a USB charging point here. It's also what allows you to have wired connectivity of your phone. But the good news is that that's not the only thing that you get. You also have the option of going with just, there you go, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So that's a very good thing to have because you don't want to constantly keep charging your phone. Speaking of charging, there's a wireless charger here and you can turn that on or off as well. So again, a good thing from the point of view of usability. EV mode and drive mode buttons down here because, well, this is the full hybrid version. And then the other feature that everybody loves these days is seat ventilation. So you've got the driver and the passenger seat that have seat ventilation, a huge panoramic sunroof, two-tone interior on the top end version here. So you've got a brown and black. There's also an all black version of the cabin that you can get depending on the variant. Head-up display, virtual instrument cluster, and that cluster is very sharp, very nicely done. It's very simple, and depending on the drive mode, the speedo color actually changes. You can have an analog or a digital speedometer, and you can also see the energy flow in terms of what's happening with the hybrid system. All of those display readouts come in here, so it's pretty convenient, besides of course trip computer and everything else. Cruise control, volume adjustment for your music and your phone, as well as virtual assistant. All of those controls are right here on the steering wheel as well. Okay, so it's looking all pretty good. The seat's very comfortable. You get decent SUV ride height. Now let's take a look at the back seat. The 6 airbags option, which includes the curtain airbags, is only at the top end. The top couple of trims get it. I wish that had been standard. What is nice though is that you have this, the standard 3-point seat belt for the middle passenger. That is great to have. I'm very happy with that. The seat is reasonably comfortable. Under thigh support is all right. It could have been a little plumper, but sense of space is pretty good. You can also recline the seat for what it's worth to a little bit more of an angle. So it makes things a little more comfortable for sure. Now, the sense of space is good even from the point of view of the glass or the greenhouse area. And you do get the rear AC vent, something that most Indian buyers will look for. And now increasingly also look for USB charging. So you've got the regular USB-A and a USB-C point back here, which makes things a little more convenient for family members who want to charge their devices. The car has 55 connected features, a decent sound system, and comes across as modern on tech. But there is one flaw. So while this is all very good, in the daytime with bright sunshine, I can see the Apple CarPlay screen no problem. But when you turn off CarPlay and you go back to just the car's own menu, it's very nice and tastefully done in a black background, but you see a lot of reflections in it. If you have a passenger, well, you can see their entire reflection in it. And so that means that readability becomes a problem, especially when you're driving. You can't be sort of focusing on the words here, right? You've got to keep your attention on the road. That is a little bit of a deal breaker. There should be a day mode which uses lighter colors, or the screen needs to have been angled towards the driver. This is a little bit of a problem for me. And then there's the slight issue with the rear view camera. Now, one thing I noticed is a very small matter, but something that you will have to get used to. Put the car in reverse, and yeah, it just takes that little extra second for the display to come up. So if you really rely on the camera, well, wait for it to come before you start moving. What is nice though is that you have the 360 camera, and when you start driving away, you also have the front view. Yes, the doors are light and they don't always shut correctly or with the proper thud. There's no third row on the Hyryder, and you won't see one in the foreseeable future, but the boot space may well surprise you. The Hyryder's boot is pretty spacious. You get 255 liters of boot volume. You can, of course, collapse these seats. There's a 60-40 split on them if you want even more cargo space. Little extra bonus room down here, and it's nice to have this little tray over it because, you know, you could put your laptop in, etc., and it won't get spotted. So that's a nice thing to have. The reason for this extra bonus space is also because, well, there you go. That's actually the battery pack, and the mild hybrid version won't have that at all, right? So on that, you get an extra 100 liters of space overall. So it's 355 liters on that one. But this is good to have. Now, in case you're wondering where the spare wheel goes, you still get a full-size spare. Of course, it's a steel rim, but it's down here, typical SUV style. That's where it is. And on the mild hybrid, well, it sits inside the boot. Now, there's lots of variety, lots of options for consumers on the Hyryder. That's a good thing. I don't just mean the different grades, but also the different drivetrains. So you've got the full hybrid system. That's the car with me. That's the Toyota system on the 1.5 TNGA petrol engine. That's what's mated to the motor here. On the mild hybrid, which is the Neo Drive on the Toyota side of things, it's the K-Series Suzuki petrol engine, also 1.5 litre. You do have automatic and manual, and yes, you have an all-wheel drive, but that's only on the manual on the K-Series engine. Now, the mileage figure is going to be a huge headline because on the hybrid, you get nearly 28 kilometers to the litre of petrol. On the mild hybrid, it's also pretty good, 21. When you have a hybrid car, you want to see the energy flow. It kind of makes you drive a little more efficiently, to be honest. And so that's not a bad thing because you'll save fuel and get a fantastic mileage. Now, I have been testing the car, so I've been driving it pretty hard on the highway and then kind of slow through this rural area. And I'm still averaging close to 20 kilometers per litre. So, you know, that part is what I think becomes the huge advantage of a hybrid. On to the big question then. How does it drive? The whole idea of driving a hybrid is that you want to conserve fuel, and so which is why the focus is on fuel efficiency. This isn't the car you get if you want something that's really sporty. It drives very well in terms of being very smooth. It's very nice when you're cruising, but when you want that instant burst of acceleration, well, that is where the car is slow. Now I have to say, when you put it into power mode, well, then things start getting a little bit better. You do get a more urgent feel from the engine and a better response. But on the whole, like I said, this car is not for someone who wants very quick initial acceleration, but as a nice highway cruiser and as, dare I say, an urban cruiser, it works just fine. The cruiser aspect gets even more amplified by the EV mode. Now when there's enough charge in the battery, you can press this EV mode button and the car just glides silently because it goes into EV mode, which means it's only driving on battery power. That's like all other hybrids that we've talked about on the show before. Give it a little gas, you want a little extra power, well, that's when, of course, the engine comes to life as well. And that's when the full hybrid drive starts. Now when the gasoline engine does come on, you feel a little bit of a vibration come through to the cabin, and there's a bit of a growl, which I would have liked to have seen being a little more, just a little more refined. But otherwise, it's a pretty superfluous and very easy, smooth flow between the use of the motor and the use of the petrol engine. Besides that, you of course have a lot of times when both are in action and both are active. Again, the overall drive is very smooth. There's another advantage to having a hybrid powertrain, and that's energy conservation. This special hybrid-only gearbox gives you the D or drive mode and also gives you the B mode. B is engine braking. So basically, it means that the engine comes on purely to be able to give you more recuperation of energy, more regenerative energy going into the battery. So the engine acts as the brake in a sense, kind of like single pedal driving. And I quite like it, but the good news is that even when you're in D mode, there is still a lot of regeneration, and that is of course how the battery self-charges anyway. Now I didn't get to drive the mild hybrid version, so I have to wait and see how that engine performs, but ride quality should be similar on both. The sense of heft and the sense of a little bit of stiff feeling you would want from a car this size, well, that is missing. And I think that's where the Suzuki antecedents start to show up. The car feels a little tinny, a little light, and even ride quality, therefore, is not fantastic. The Hyryder also comes with an all-wheel drive system, and that's available only on the manual transmission and on the mild hybrid K-series engine version. Now that's one I'd love to test when I get one from Toyota, because it's the only all-wheel drive in the overall compact SUV segment right now. The Urban Cruiser Hyryder in the full hybrid avatar is available in 3 variants, while the mild hybrid is available in 4. Consumers are going to get a lot of choice when it comes to variants and even colors. And with Toyota, one thing is pretty much for certain: maintenance costs will stay in check. I expect the price for the mild hybrid or Neo Drive version of the SUV to be between 10 and 13 lakh rupees, while the full hybrid that we've shown you today will come at a premium. So the cost may actually begin at about 12 lakh rupees or maybe higher and go all the way to 15 or 16 lakh rupees for the top end. The Urban Cruiser Hyryder has its faults, but the big plus is that it introduces a complete self-charging hybrid in the compact SUV space, and that differentiator could just be the curveball from Toyota to tilt the balance in its favor. The car is being made at Toyota Kirloskar's plant in Bidadi, and remember, even the hybrid system is now assembled right here in India.